Katie and this is Sam, and we're going to take you through a 15-minute balance today. So balance is one of those things that we know we need, and yet we don't do it because we don't want to wobble and fall over. But my biggest tip for you is wobble, because that's how we find the edges of our proprioception and we find where we really sit in space. So we're going to start with our heels underneath our hips and toes tracking forward. Just bring your palm to your breastbone, and I want to make sure that that breastbone is above or maybe even slightly forward of your pubic bone. So if I just turn to the side, it's much easier to balance with this breastbone lifted than it is if the breastbone is back. If I'm here, everything is hanging down. If I'm here, naturally everything is lifted around the core. Keep the knees nice and soft, and let's just work out where your weight placement is. So press a little into the toes and see how far forward you can send yourself, and then press back into the heels and see how far you can send yourself. Hopefully when you're pressing through the ball of the foot and all 10 of those toes, it should feel like the core can be a little more active. So we're working towards having about 60% of the weight through the ball of the foot and 40 through the heel. As you're here, keep the knees soft, and I want you to take an inhale and lift the heels. Take an exhale and lower them. And I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see. As I lift, hopefully you see that I go straight up and straight down. So you know that if to lift up, you have to send your weight forward and then up, your weight was probably a little too far back in the first place. So use your breath. Inhale to lift. Exhale to lower. And you want to take just as long to lower as you do to lift. While we're in the postpartum phase of life, if you're still breastfeeding, you have a lot of hormones still careening around your body, and estrogen, elastin, relaxin. But what we want to make sure is that we're stable through the joints and we're thinking about it, because there is laxity in our joints. And until you finish your breastfeeding journey, and potentially up to 6 months after that, there's still laxity in your joints. So the more that you can stay stable, the more that you can know exactly where you are in space, the less at risk you are of injury once you get back to maybe a little more high impact work, a little bit of that faster work if you like to run, even if you're walking with baby in front pack or pushing a stroller, just making sure that we're nice and even. My next challenge for you here is to close your eyes as you lift your heels. Inhale, lift. Remember, we can't see you, so do give it a try with the eyes closed, and it doesn't matter if you wobble. And exhale to lower. Try to take just as long to lift as you do to lower. As you're lifting and lowering, pay attention to where your heels are. So we don't want to overpronate, we don't want to fire those heels out, and we don't want to knock the knees together, and we definitely want to keep those knees nice and soft. So if naturally you've started to lock into the legs, re-soften the knees and just give that a little bit of a challenge. Good. Come all the way down, drop those heels down. We're going to make 2 little fingers, and we're going to pop those fingers at the front of your hip bones. And this is just a tactile marker so that you know where you are in space. You can put your thumb behind your hip if you prefer, or just keep your hand nice and level. But we're going to shift our weight into one foot. So shift your weight over into one foot. Keep the hips level and see if you can pick up your leg. Now this action is exactly the same as when we're on the floor in tabletop and we lift the leg, and we try and think of using the core to lift the leg. Inhale, slide out and away. Exhale, lift. Inhale, slide out and away. And what we want to avoid is doing this action to lift the leg, which is a counterbalance. We want to stay square through the torso and know that we really have control of that balance. And if you feel very wobbly to start with, don't panic. It's practice as well. Inhaling, sliding over. Exhaling to lift. Inhaling, sliding over. And exhaling to lift. Good. Last one. Inhale, slide over. Exhale, lift. And finishing off so we're even on both legs. Exhale over and lift. Bring yourself all the way back, and we're just going to find a relatively narrow stance. Again, breastbone forward. Drive the fingertips forward and just stay relaxed through the shoulders, so you're not trying to anchor the shoulders down. We're just keeping a little bit of engagement between the center of the shoulder blades, like you're trying to hold a lemon in place. As you inhale, we're going to try and keep the pelvis level, but draw the elbow back. As you exhale, drive it forward. Inhale, open. Exhale to close. And as we take that rotation, as much as we can, we want to stay level through the hips. So we want this rotation to happen in the waistline, keeping the hips level. So if you're in front of a reflective surface, you do this and you can see both legs, you know that you've actually over-twisted your pelvis. So you want to keep that breastbone up and forwards and find that rotation, reaching elbow back, reaching fingertips forward. Now, because this is a balance session, we are going to try and keep the arms the same and add the heel lift as we go. So, inhale, lift, open. Exhale, drive forward. Inhale, lift, open, keeping the hips level. Exhale, drive forward. Now, you can keep your eye line forward to start with if you need a place of balance. It's absolutely fine. But once you feel confident enough to take the eye line with you, it's a really nice way of just adding into that rotation. Last two. Don't worry if you wobble. Weight forwards a little further than you think you need to, so the core works, keeping you nice and lifted. Last one, and come back to center. Good. Give yourself a little wiggle and a shake. Ignore what you just did, and we're going to change our breathing round to do the same arms with the single leg lift. So slide the arms forward. This time, you're going to exhale as the elbow draws back and the opposite leg lifts forward. So take a breath in to stabilize. Exhale, elbow flies back, leg comes forward. Inhale. Exhale, and once you feel comfortable with the movement, don't be afraid to take that eye line to the side. And I want you to feel like you can get out of the habit of not doing things that challenge you. A wobble is a good thing because it's really testing where we are in space, and it means your body has to rethink about where it thought the center was. And we get into habitual patterns of movement. We're feeding, we're up, we're down, we're exhausted. There's less stability in our joints, as we spoke about before, so just having a little more control over where your body is in space and feeling like if you have to get up in the middle of the night to look after Bubba, you know your ankles are going to stay nice and aligned, and come down. Give yourself a little wiggle and a shake here. From here, we're going to bring ourselves into a ballet first position. Now, I don't want you to feel like you have to audition for the raw ballet here. If there's just a tiny slice of pie between your big toes, that's fine. But be where it feels natural and where you feel like that rotation can come out from the top of the thigh bone again. Place hands on your hips for now, just so you don't have to think about them too much. And we're going to keep a little bend in the knees. So we're going to start with a little bend. So we're going to take 4 demi-pliés, 4 bends. 4. Last 3. Last 2. Last one. Now just have a look at what's happening in your legs here. So you want the thigh bones to press back. We want the knees to be tracking over that second and third toe. Staying low. I don't want you to think of gaining any height, but we're going to see if we can peel those heels off the floor. Inhaling to peel the heels off. Exhaling to place them back down. If you have a bench top, a wall, a chair that you want to hold on for this, that's absolutely fine. Peeling the heels off. Lowering them back down again. Peeling the heels off. Lowering them back down again. Last 4. Try not to gain any height. So we're also working through the legs here. Last 3. Good. And slow and control is the key here. Last 2. And last 1. Hold the heels off if you can. For me, it feels nicer to take my arms forward, and this is a little counterbalance, but keeping my breastbone a little further forward than my pubic bone. And we're just going to see if we can take a teeny, tiny pulse. We're 8, 7, 6, last 5, last 4, last 3. Keep the connection through the core. Last 1, hold. lower, replace the heels, and take a little stretch. Really nice. We're going to turn around to this side. We're going to find ourselves in a very small range lunge. So any lunge is a balance challenge. We're going to take one foot back. And depending on how far postpartum you are, feel free to keep this range really small. If you're at the point where you feel like you can increase your range, feel free to increase your range. From this point, I want you to think of a vertical shin bone. So I don't want that knee to press forward because this is going to go really into the quads here. And I don't want the knee to drop back because I don't want you to create too many shearing forces. So really trying as much as you can to keep that shin bone vertical. Bend into the back knee and work out where your pelvis is. So we want the same distance between hip and ribs on both sides. I'm going to take my arms forward, but feel free to pop your hands on your hips if that feels nicer. We're going to take 3 pulses and 1 little stretch. So we pulse into the front heel. Think of the front heel down. 3. Last 2. Last 1. And we're going to take a stretch up. Now, I find this really hard to hold on to my hip stability here because naturally, this is what I want to do when I stretch. So we're trying to keep the pelvis nice and level. So we're coming down again. We're taking 3, 2, 1. Press through the heel and stand. We've got 2 more. 3, 2, 1. Press through the heel to stand. Last one. 3, 2, last one. Press through the heel, find that stand, find that lift. Good, give yourself a little trot. We're going to turn around, face the opposite side, and do exactly the same thing. So find your lunge, and small range is absolutely fine. This doesn't have to be your maximum range of lunge. The further back you go, the more you have to work in your stability of hip and ribs. So start small, and we'll get there incrementally. So bending into the front knee, finding a little bend in the back leg. Find that vertical shin bone. Where is that lunge for you? And from here, maybe taking a little pelvic tilt underneath. So find where it is that the pelvis wants to sit. Ribs and hips even on both sides, either hands on hips or arms forwards. If you're holding onto a chair or a wall, side or front is fine. We're taking 3 pulses down. Find the heel. Find the heel. Find the front heel. As you stretch, stay level through the pelvis. 3 more. Bend, 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 and stretch. Again, bend, bend, find that heel, bend, and stretch. Last one, bend, 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 and stretch. Really nice. Bring yourself together. And from here, we're just going to take a little transfer of weight side to side, testing our balance on either leg. So I'm going to shuffle myself along a little bit because I'm going to extend out this leg this way. A little bit of softness in the knees. I'm going to bring my hands to a little prayer hand just so I can find pressure in the heels of my hands, which also just makes me feel nice and connected through the top of my core. There's a little hinge forward, and just again finding that pelvic tilt. From here, keeping the weight over this leg, we're going to tap the leg out and center. Out and center. Out and center. Out and center. 4 more. 4, drive through the heel rather than through the ball of the foot. Last 2. Last one, hold it out. We're going to try a little tiny lift. Lift and tap. Lift and tap. Keep that knee tracking over your second and third toe. Try to make sure it stays nice and parallel. 4. Last 3. Weight in the heel. Last one. Good. Let's step over to the other side. Feet together. Give yourself a little wiggle and a shake. We are tap and center. Tap and center. Keep thinking of taking the weight back into the heel a little bit here. The more you press into the ball of the foot, the more that quad is going to fire. A little bit of the weight backwards, you're going to find your glute is nice and ready to fire. Last 2. Last one, holding here, take a little lift and tap. Lift and tap. Lift and tap. Lift and tap. 4 more, it's only a small lift. 4 is the front of your torso supporting your back. Last 2. Last one. Bring the toes and heels together, lift up. Just check that weight one more time. Soften into the knees, lift up, test that balance. You can bring your arms down, out to the side, above your head. Take your eye line to one side, and then to the other. Back to center. Lower those heels, open those arms, and hopefully your body feels a lot more aware of exactly where it is in space today and moving forward. Thanks for joining us.